things have been disrupted way beyond what initially happened during the pandemic. It's no longer acceptable to give that suboptimal experience to folks, whether they meet the qualifications or not. And we're at the point, I believe, where it's not just eroding our talent brand, it's eroding our consumer brand. All of these people that are applying for jobs, they are current or future customers. 95% of applicants don't get any sort of meaningful interaction. I just see real opportunity for AI to give really meaningful, immediate feedback.
What's your opinion on the green banner?
Oh my goodness.
Welcome to Hiring on All Cylinders. I'm your host, Chris Abbas, and I'm joined today by James Hudson. James has worked for some of the most recognizable brands in the world, including Nike, Levi's, and Net-a-Porter. I think I said that right this time.
You got them all right.
There we go. Good start.
He didn't in rehearsal.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. We've been practicing that for a good few minutes. Today, we're going to be speaking about how to think differently about talent brand in a post-pandemic world. I know it's something that you feel really strongly about. But I thought we'd start by getting your take on the shifts that have happened over the last few years in regards to talent brand and what you're seeing out there in terms of trends and things that are just different.
Yeah. I think it's so interesting how the pandemic has had a series of consequences that we didn't foresee at the time, but now in hindsight, it's kind of really obvious that things have been disrupted way beyond what initially happened during the pandemic. And what I mean by that is how it caused an inflection point in how we think about work, how we think about our relationship to companies and how companies think about their relationship to their employees, how we value our time, how we think about where we live, how we commute. It really caused us all to throw all our cards up in the air and then really question how we were living before. Is that the right way to live? And it's obviously spun off multiple conversations about return to work and hybrid and remote, but then beyond that, bigger questions of, does the 5-day work week still make sense? Does working for 40 years without a break still make sense? How are we expected, for most households that are two-parent households with kids that also need both parents to work, how did we make any of that work? And does that still make sense? And I don't think the dust has fully settled.
Yeah.
But the result of all of that is, and I think this is a really good thing, that we're starting to question some of the accepted norms around how we live and how we work. And that then, of course, has had a huge impact on the talent market.
Yeah. And it feels like a lot of companies have maybe been caught off guard by a lot of this and are now thinking about, there was the Great Resignation. Now companies are having this really, I guess, minimal amount of attrition because there's been lots of layoffs and such, but are thinking about how they can retain their talent going forwards and how they can build, their companies to be set up for this new reality. What do you think are the key considerations that companies should be thinking about? You've mentioned all these changes that could possibly happen and people are thinking about. Do you think there's like some core categories that kind of companies should focus on and can really make an impact into this new way of working, a new way of looking at brand?
For sure. I think there's a few things.
Yeah.
First of all, pre-pandemic, I think for the longest time, it was an accepted truth of the talent market and a company's engagement with the talent market that creating a certain amount of dissatisfaction was the cost of doing business. And let me explain what I mean by that. That pre-pandemic, you might expect to receive 100 applications for a job that you posted. And, I've been doing this for 20 years all over the world. And the data's always the same, right? Year over year, in every part of the enterprise, in every geography, that roughly 75% of the folks that apply for a job will not meet the minimum qualifications for the job, and roughly 25% will. And it was kind of an accepted norm that the 75% of noise in the talent market or noise in your applicant pool, you would give a minimal and or suboptimal experience to. They might get they might get an acknowledgement that they've applied.
Yeah.
They might get a notification when the requisition closes, and that's it. And then for the 25% that do meet the minimum qualifications for the job, that's where the recruiting team would engage with those folks, find of those 25 candidates, find the 15 that are worth talking to, and from the 15 find the 6 that make it to the first slate. That kind of worked pre-pandemic. Post-pandemic, everything's changed. It's now maybe 1,000 applicants to a job. The percentages haven't changed, though. It's still 75% of the people that apply are non-qualified and 25% are qualified, but everything's 10x, right? So now you've got 750 people that are going to get a suboptimal experience. You've got 250 people that deserve a more optimal experience because they could all be potential talent, but recruiting teams are overwhelmed because there are fewer recruiters in seats because recruiting teams were disproportionately impacted by layoffs. They're often working with incredibly legacy tech stacks, so effectively meeting a digital problem with an analog solution. And there's just not enough hours in the day for them to speak to those 250 people to figure out, of the 250 people, who are the 6 most qualified. And then on top of all of that, our expectations have changed, and it's no longer acceptable, I believe, to give that suboptimal experience to folks, whether they meet the qualifications or not. And it's always been my belief that by giving a suboptimal experience to job applicants, we're slowly eroding our talent brand. That has now turned into a tsunami. And we're at the point, I believe, where it's not just eroding our talent brand, it's eroding our consumer brand. And companies that can't figure out how to properly engage with a post-pandemic talent market are going to wither because we're so vocal, we're online so much, and all of these people that are applying for jobs, they are current or future customers. And I don't care whether you're a consumer-facing brand or not. Even if you're a B2B brand, these people are still potential future customers. And we have to figure out a way to re-engage with the talent market in a more meaningful way. Otherwise, we're just going to destroy our brands.
Yeah. I wonder if it's got something to do with like the seesawing of the market, where talent leaders have had to build these teams that are suitable for like a really competitive, they're getting no inbound. They really have to go out and fight for every hire that they make, which is a completely different setup of team to one that's handling like a huge amount of inbound applicants. How do you create a team that's suitable for the cycles of recruitment that inevitably are going to happen, right? It's no secret now, and I think that we're going to go through ups and downs. It's going to be volatile. Is there a way that you can create like a solution that can deal with both of those things at the same time?
Talentful provides flexible recruiting solutions to the world's most ambitious companies. Are you thinking about ways to add flexibility to your talent function? With recent market volatility and hiring set to return to growth mode in the near future, there's never been a better time to choose the right partner to help you scale. Talentful's embedded sourcing, recruiting, coordination, and talent advisory services have been trusted by the world's leading brands. Companies such as Atlassian, Microsoft, Expedia, Pinterest, Waymo, and more. Whether you're hiring across engineering, go-to-market, or G&A, Talentful has got you covered. To find out how Talentful can help you, visit talentful.com.
Yes.
Yeah, there we go.
Yes. That's the answer. Yes. I think we need to think about this entirely differently. And what I mean by that is, I think the more progressive talent teams and the more progressive talent leaders have always had a marketing mindset, right? We're a sales function. We're in the, I've long argued that we're the most critical sales function in any organization, because if we can't sell a career, we haven't got a hope of selling anything else, number one. But I think we need to take that we've been on a journey, and we need to take it to its logical conclusion and really rebuild our systems, our processes, and our philosophy from the ground up, from truly a candidate-centric, a customer-centric mindset. So much of our philosophy and processes and enabling technology really was built to enable recruiters to do their jobs. And actually, what we should be thinking about are, who are our customers? Our biggest constituency of customers are, of course, our candidates and our applicants. What makes sense from a process engagement and philosophy for that very large group of people? Our next largest group of customers are our hiring managers, and what makes sense for that customer group from a service delivery, from a data delivery perspective. And then, of course, the business and our HR business partners are another set of customers. And those three sets of customers have very different needs. And we really need to be thinking about how are we building, first of all, what's our underlying philosophy? And what are our systems, tools, and processes that bring that philosophy to life in a way that best serves those three groups of constituents in the most meaningful way when there might well be competing priorities between what candidates need versus what hiring managers need versus what the business, data business partners need. And I really don't think we've done that yet. And that is the new frontier.
Yeah. And does that mean that the setup of teams need to be different? Like the configuration of like a talent team should be different, and what should that look like?
Not just the configuration of the team, but the configuration of the tech stack, right? It's both things, right? It's philosophy first, then process and people, and then how does the technology hang around that to enable all of that? And yeah, I think we fundamentally need to rebuild. And I think, obviously, with the significant strides forward in both consumer-facing technology, which is also starting to bleed into enterprise technology, the role of the recruiter is necessarily going to change, and how the recruiter spends their time is going to change. And whilst we're going through that disruption, how can we best reposition what the role of the recruiter is? And so less of a transactional going out and sourcing, getting people on board, and more of a CRM mindset, right? So CRM in marketing is one thing, and when I talk about CRM in recruiting, I'm thinking about long-term career engagement. So your career outside the company, that's still part of the job, right? How are recruiters engaging with external talent? But how are they building a lifetime relationship with that talent? So, in the old model, once somebody's onboarded, maybe even during the first 90 days, the recruiter is still hands-on. Increasingly, the recruiter is going to be holding hands with the talent all the way through their journey with the company, and helping manage their onward career. Yeah. And so, and I think that's how I would start to see it change, is thinking about longer term relationships with talent.
Interesting, like account management, but
career account management, yeah. Career CRM,
yeah.
Lifetime, the lifetime relationship of the talent.
Yeah. And do you see that being like a skill set training kind of problem, where you build your team, you say, okay, the recruiters that I want in my organization, this is what they're going to be doing. They're going to be taking candidates through the journey whilst at the company, and training recruiters up, or bringing HR people into recruitment. Like, do you see a way of attacking that problem and skilling up people that don't have that right now?
Well, that's where I think there's good news in all of this, because it's fundamentally about relationships, which is what the best recruiters are good at. That is their core skill, is building relationships and maintaining relationships and communicating. And so that doesn't change, but it's how they're able to spend their time. And obviously technology is going to free up a lot of time and change some of the, is going to remove some of the administrative burden and some of the sourcing burden. So there will be more time in an ideal world for recruiters to do different tasks, do the similar tasks, but at different phases of the employee life cycle. And it's also how recruiting is positioned internally and seen less as a transactional order taker bringing talent in, and more of a long-term talent management. Yeah. I mean, and there's always, in large organizations, there is always that lockstep between talent management and talent acquisition. We're all part of the talent function. It's how do we bring that to life in the industry as a whole, in the discipline as a whole, so that even in smaller organizations, the recruiter is seen as the talent manager or the talent agent rather than just the order taker.
That's interesting. I mean, some company soon is going to be very lucky to have you come on board and be able to build something around it and kind of build this world that you see. I mean, when you're thinking about like this role that you go into and like how you're going to enact some of this stuff, when you think about the technology that you're going to be using and maybe putting in place to augment the team, like you said, do you have any things that you think, okay, this is where I'm going to use technology, this is what I'm going to use, this is what could be really useful to drive this kind of change in a business? Have you seen anything yet specifically? What are you thinking about?
Yes, this is a great question. I actually wrote about this in my column in Forbes a few weeks ago. And I see AI transforming recruiting in 3 waves. And with some heavy caveats around this, that first of all, the legislation needs to keep pace with the technology, which it hasn't yet. And we need to get the investment dollars, and we need to get support from the business, and we need to get our friends in legal on board and all of that stuff. Assuming all of that happens, obviously the first opportunity for AI is removing all of the administrative burden and busy work. Number one, like that is an easy win. Number two, which I think it's interesting that the counter narrative to AI that we're seeing on social media, specifically around in the talent market, is this sense of fear that already exists from candidates that AI is already at work inside the ATS and it's impossible to find a job because AI is reading resumes and dispositioning folks. That obviously is not happening yet. And the thing that people are most scared about is where I think there is significant opportunity in that right now, a minimum 75, but realistically 95% of applicants don't get any sort of meaningful interaction at all with the companies that they're applying to. And AI will be able to give very meaningful, very rich interactions, which actually will hopefully enable applicants and candidates to walk away with a much more positive view of their interaction with a talent brand than we've ever been able to deliver with human recruiters. And so what I mean by that is, when you apply to a job, you'll be able to have a real-time conversation that will feel like a rich interaction, that will be able to give you real-time feedback in the same way that a recruiter would, that this is why you're not qualified for this job. And these are jobs inside our organization that, based on what I can see from what you're presenting right now, these are jobs that actually do match. Or if this job is your dream job or the thing that you really want to get to, here are 4 things that you need to go away and do to be qualified for this job. And, next level, you're not qualified for this job, or indeed any jobs in this organization right now, and here's why. And, recruiting is often not just no, it's not yet. You're not yet qualified for anything in the organization, but here are the 4 companies or 4 industries that we tend to hire from. Here are the job functions that we tend to hire from. Here's why we do that. If you go away and get this experience, you're more likely to be hireable by us in the future. I just see real opportunity for AI to give really meaningful, immediate feedback that we're just, you would only get from a recruiter, and only get from some recruiters that would be willing to be that candid. So I think that's a really interesting opportunity that will give a better experience of our talent brand. And then I think about, something we're still not very good at, even in Fortune 500 companies, it's like large scale predictive analytics. And AI is going to be able to unlock all of that for us. So it's going to be able to very clearly join the dots between what happens during sourcing, what happens during screening, what happens during onboarding, what happens during the first 90 days, what happens during the first year, what happens during the first 18 months. And so we'll be able to get much better signal about each part of the employee lifecycle and what we need to do differently to ensure that we're hiring folks that can onboard, that can feel like they belong, that can get promoted, that can add value. I think AI will be able to unlock that. And then, of course, all of the what I call decision augmentation. So to use an analogy, there's a lot of talk that in the field of medicine, AI will be able to help radiologists better read X-rays and better read scans. It will still be a human doctor reading the scan, but the AI co-pilot will be like, are you seeing indicator X or Y? And I see the same thing in talent decisions that, you know, I can see a world where the AI will be like, what you just said will prompt the interviewer that what you just said is a microaggression, or you missed what the candidate, like, you know, helping them be better at interviewing, and also helping ensure that we're getting better signal from interviews and doing better summaries. So I think there's lots of horizons of AI that I see as opportunity and not something to be scared of.
Yeah, so a lot of what you said is like really enabling recruiters to do more valuable work.
Yeah,
Is that how you see
100%.
it?
100%.
And higher quality work.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I guess, have you seen any like specific technology so far that can do any of those things well? That's like exciting you, or, you know, something that you're like, wow, I've used that, or I would use this, or...
Sure. And I need to be super careful because I sit on the advisory boards of a number of AI firms. And yes, some of the firms that I'm advising are doing really interesting things. And there are a lot of new entrants to the space. And it is super early days. But yes, this is a bold new frontier. And I believe it is going to create a better experience for candidates. It's going to help companies make better, smarter, more consistent hiring decisions. But yeah, it's still early days.
It's a bit tight-lipped at the moment. Okay, I get it. And then in terms of, you know, if you're a talent leader and you feel really passionate about what you're talking about today, and you're trying to get your business or your stakeholders excited too, what's the way that you position that to a company? You know, building this, you know, really great infrastructure to support your talent brand and create great experience for your people. Are there things that you would do in terms of selling that proposition to your leadership team, or metrics that you would measure to say you're being successful at this thing? What's the great kind of output from this stuff that can lead to kind of supporting a strong business proposition?
So in my experience, a great business case contains two things, right? It's rooted in data, and then it uses that data to craft a compelling narrative, the storytelling piece that helps it land with your audience, and depends on the business you're in, right? Some businesses are really quant driven and it's all going to be about the data with minimal storytelling, and some businesses are more about qualifying ideas, and the messaging and the narrative means more, and the art and the science is figuring out what's best for your organization. But it should always be rooted in data. And that's one of the reasons I've stayed in talent acquisition so long, is that A, we generate a lot of data, and B, you can put a number on almost every single part of the value chain, from aware to interested to apply to selection to onboarding, to every single part of the funnel. We can start to quantify, and understanding which parts of the funnel and which parts of the messaging are most important to your internal audience is one thing. But then also understanding where you're able to extrapolate data for the business that your funnel might not be telling you. So for example, when you're thinking about moving, when you're looking at typically aware to apply, and typically we look at, you know, what's the drop off between external media and getting inside the ATS, right? And what we're typically looking at is what is the pull through rate and how effective is our media? Because what we're really looking at is our external media spend, are we getting the right ROI? All of that is totally valid. But in a situation like this, rather than focusing on, and the industry average in North America is 16% pull through from external media into the ATS. And we're typically focusing on the 16% in that scenario. Actually, I would venture to suggest that focusing on the 84% in building a business case might be something worth exploring. So those 84% of people that were interested enough to hit apply that didn't complete their application. Why was that? What is that telling us? What is that telling us about our talent brand? What is that potentially saying about our consumer brand? What is going to be the net effect over time of not addressing that? And so that's where the storytelling comes in. Is that meaningful to our business? And it maybe not, depending on the sector that you're in, but really looking at holistically, what data do we have and what can we extrapolate from that? And then how might that guide what we're going to do next?
Awesome.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, definitely. And there's been a real rise of individuals inside of companies building their own brands. And, you've built an incredible brand over the last few years, as well, using social and LinkedIn. And I wonder how companies can harness that. Have you thought about that? Does that make sense for companies to try and leverage individuals' kind of personal brands to represent their company? Do you see that picking up momentum?
It's interesting in that I want to say 5 years ago, maybe even longer, LinkedIn piloted a new product that they called Elevate. And it was designed to harness exactly that, to harness the power of employee voice externally. And we piloted it at Levi's. And I think it was too early, and LinkedIn ended up shelving the product. And then since then, there've been a number of other point solutions in the space that outside of the LinkedIn ecosystem that are trying to do the same thing. And yes, I believed in it 5 years ago. I still believe in it now. I think there's a few barriers. There's a lot of resistance there can be a lot of resistance inside companies that are really nervous to do it. There can be resistance from the employee base themselves. You have to kind of do a hearts and minds campaign to get them on board. There is risk in doing it because you can't control the narrative. And the fourth thing is that there's still not a great technology solution to harness it. But yes, I believe that's going to be a frontier because we are online so much more. And why would you not want to, as an organization, why would you not want to capitalize on that massive organic reach that you already have because of the people that work for you?
Yeah, because it's in the basic place at the moment where you just get your employees to like and comment a post that you've made. But I think there's a much bigger step and a much more valuable use of those people. But I think, like you said, it is very hard. I mean, you probably, even in your own personal experience, just posting consistently is hard, even when you're self-motivated to do it. So getting other people to do that and provide them with the right content, and it's a tricky thing that I think hopefully gets fixed, because I think it could be really powerful. Now, I want to talk about something a bit stupid and controversial, but what's your opinion on the green banner?
Oh my goodness. I am so sick of talking about this. And I think what makes me so irritated about the whole nonsense debate around it is that so much of the clickbait content is easily disprovable, number one. The loudest voices are recruiters that stopped being recruiters more than a decade ago. So have not been in the LinkedIn ecosystem since the functionality was launched. And the loudest voices that are telling people not to use it are ex-recruiters that have started talent businesses that rely on friction in the talent market to make money. And the open to work banner removes that friction and makes it harder for them to make money. So that's why they're opposed to it. It's really cynical, capitalistic motivations. So let me give you some hard facts. LinkedIn product managers built the open to work functionality in 2021 in response to the first wave of tech layoffs. There are two pieces of functionality in the open to work universe. There is the functionality where you can indicate to recruiters only that you are open to work. And then there is the green banner, which is visible to all LinkedIn users. LinkedIn has 1 billion members worldwide. And so they have very, very rich data sets. And LinkedIn's own data shows across all billion users that folks that use the recruiter notification, the private notification, see a 40% uptick in in-mails.
Wow.
And users that use the green banner see a further 20% uptick in in-mails. And so I would argue that for the vast majority of job seekers, you would want to use both. You want to privately indicate to recruiters that you are open to work because you want 40% more in-mails from recruiters because that is directly connecting you with potential opportunity. But for most job seekers, especially that aren't currently working right now, you also want that additional 20% uplift in in-mails from across the LinkedIn community because you do want to hear from recruiters, but you also want to hear directly from hiring managers, from peers of hiring managers that might connect you with opportunity. And broadening your digital footprint and getting more outreach is for most people a good thing. Now, if you're currently in a job and really miserable and looking for work, then obviously you can't use the green open to work banner because you don't want to notify your company. But for everybody else, absolutely use it. Why would you not?
Yeah. And you know a lot of senior people in the talent space. Anyone you know that would reject someone or think negatively about someone having a green banner?
Absolutely not.
No.
Absolutely not. That preying on folks at their most vulnerable moment and trying to scare them to like buy your course or like use your service is just so egregiously wrong.
Yeah, I totally agree. Well, I'm glad we got that settled once and for all. So before we wrap it up, I just wanted to ask you kind of what you're most excited about regarding the kind of future of TA. Is there anything that's top of mind for you?
I am super excited about AI. And honestly, more for what it will do for candidates than what it can do for recruiters. Yes, it will make our jobs easier and it will allow us to spend more time doing value add. But I genuinely believe that we'll see the biggest incremental improvement in how we're able to better able to manage our external talent brand by giving more richer, meaningful experiences to an entire constituency of folks that we weren't previously able to engage with human recruiters because we're always, understaffed even at the best of times. So I'm hugely excited about AI, hugely excited about what that will mean for how recruiters are seen, how recruiters are able to spend their time, and how recruiters are then more able to be, that account manager for your career, not just when you're coming into a company, but once you're inside the company and progressing over the 3 to 4 years that you can probably reasonably expect to spend inside an organization. No one's having 20-year careers anymore, but you still want to make the most of that 3 to 4 year engagement with the company that you have. And I think that's where recruiters can really start to play a meaningful role.
Awesome. Thanks, James. Well, it's been amazing having you on. Before we go, where can people find you? I know you publish a column, you're active online. Where can people find you?
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn every day, for better or for worse. And then I have a weekly column in Forbes that's published every Wednesday. So if you just Google James Hudson Forbes, I'm the first person that comes up.
Just Google him.
Just Google me.
So thank you a lot, James. If you enjoyed the conversation, please like and subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. See you next time.